Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd, your provider of belief on demand.
Belief on demand. I like that.
I'm your host, and today we're going to perform an autopsy.
An autopsy. That's a
Oh.
heavy word to start a morning with. But, given the body on the table, I suppose it's the only word that really fits.
I think it's the only honest way to frame this, because today we aren't just talking about a writer, we are talking about David Foster Wallace.
DFW.
Exactly, DFW. You know the guy, the bandana, the glasses, the
Right.
1,000-page book with the tennis academy and the terrorists in wheelchairs.
Right. Infinite jest. He's basically become the patron saint for a certain kind of person.
Oh, absolutely. The sensitive, intelligent, slightly depressed demographic.
A demographic that I suspect makes up a pretty large portion of our listener base.
I think that's a safe bet. But here's the thing. Usually when people do a deep dive on Wallace, it's a celebration. It's about how he was a genius, how he predicted the internet, how he understood irony and sincerity.
A literary analysis.
Exactly. This isn't that. We are looking at a specific, razor-sharp critique of Wallace's entire worldview.
A philosophical one.
A deeply philosophical one. We're diving into a text by the philosopher Paulo Pittari titled The Problem of Free Will in David Foster Wallace. And honestly, this text is a weapon.
It really is. It's a deconstruction. I mean, our mission today is to try and understand why the most, sensitive writer of his generation,
Right.
a man who spent his literal life trying to cure loneliness and nihilism through his art, why he ultimately failed to do so.
And see, that's the part that just rattles me. Pittari argues that Wallace failed not because he wasn't smart enough.
God, no, he was. He was beyond brilliant.
And not because he wasn't talented enough. He failed because the very tool he used to fight despair
Was the despair itself.
Yeah, it was the thing killing him.
Exactly. He was trying to cure poison with poison.
So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like you're, fighting a war inside your own head, pull up a chair, because we're about to map that battlefield. Pittari is taking us right into the intellectual friction of the modern soul. I mean, where do we even start with an idea this big?
Well, I think you have to start with the symptom, the why now.
Okay.
Why should anyone care about a philosophical critique of a writer who died over a decade ago? To answer that, you have to look at the specific type of suffering Wallace was always chronicling.
The Wallace sadness.
The Wallace sadness, exactly. If you read Infinite Jest or his short stories like The Depressed Person, or even his essays, What's the Recurring Nightmare?
It's not just like, I'm sad because my dog died.
No, it's not circumstantial sadness. It's something more structural.
It's the head noise.
The head noise.
It's the recursion. It's not just, I am sad. It's, I am watching myself be sad, and I'm judging myself for watching myself be sad.
And I'm wondering if I'm performing this sadness for some imaginary audience.
And then I feel guilty and disgusted with myself for being so self-absorbed that I'm thinking about an imaginary audience while I'm sad.
Precisely. It is a paralysis, a stasis born from hyper-reflexive self-consciousness. You're trapped in a hall of mirrors inside your own skull.
And Pittari gives this a name, right? The crisis has a name.
He does. He identifies the crisis as solipsism.
Solipsism. Okay, so that's a philosophy 101 word. That's the idea that I can't prove anyone else exists, right? Like, maybe this is all a dream.
In a strict academic sense, yes.
Right.
But Pittari, and he's using Wallace's own terminology here, he describes it as something more visceral, more felt.
Okay.
He calls it our default setting.
The default setting. I've heard this. This is from the This Is Water speech, the famous commencement address.
It is. But let's really break it down, because it's a profound concept. Pittari argues that this is the biological evolutionary hardwiring that makes every single one of us feel, deep down, like the absolute center of the universe.
The main character.
The main character in a movie where everyone else is an extra. I mean, think about your experience of the world right now. When you woke up this morning, the world, it opened up to you. Your headache is the only headache that actually hurts.
Right. I can't feel your headache.
Your hunger is the only hunger that has any real urgency. Your schedule is the only timeline that truly, deeply matters.
I'm at the dead center of my own personal history.
Yes. It is the feeling of being, as Wallace so brilliantly put it, uniquely, completely, imperially alone.
Imperially alone. God, that is such a haunting phrase. It doesn't sound grand. It sounds terrifying. Like you're being the king of a dead planet.
It is. And Pittari argues that this isn't just some biological accident we're supposed to get over.
It's encouraged.
It's encouraged. He points out that our modern society, you can call it neoliberalism, late-stage capitalism, or just the West, it actively rewards and reinforces this isolation.
How so?
Well, we are told constantly from the moment we are born that we are individuals who must create ourselves.
Build your brand, live your truth, you do you, all the Instagram mantras.
Be the architect of your own destiny. Find yourself, all of it.
It sounds so inspirational on a coffee mug, but you're saying there's a really dark underbelly to it.
A profoundly dark one. Pitari argues this relentless focus on the individual, on the self as a project, leads to a kind of Hobbesian nightmare. A bellum omnium contra omnes.
The war of all against all.
A war of all against all.
Whoa, hold on. A war. I mean, that seems a bit dramatic. I'm just trying to pay my mortgage and maybe go to the gym. I don't feel like I'm at war with my neighbor just because I want to, find myself.
Are you sure? Think about the geometry of it, the physics. If you are the absolute center of the universe, and I am the absolute center of the universe,
Then our universes are going to collide.
we can't both be the center. So what are we to each other?
Well, we're just two people trying to get by.
No. In that framework, we're competing gods. If I'm the protagonist of my movie, then you are either a supporting character who helps me,
An obstacle.
a villain who blocks me,
Right.
or an extra who just doesn't matter. You are fundamentally an object in my story.
I see. So if I'm really stuck in my default setting, I can't actually see you as a full, complex person with your own inner life.
Not really.
I just see you as slow guy in the checkout line, or person who can give me a promotion, or woman I'm trying to impress.
Exactly. And here's the contradiction. We crave connection because we're lonely.
Yeah.
That imperial isolation hurts. A horrible feeling.
Of course.
But our fundamental belief in our own autonomy, our belief that we are these separate, self-creating individuals, it makes true connection almost impossible.
Because to truly connect, you'd have to, give up being the center of the universe?
You have to surrender that centrality. But if your entire worldview is built on, I am the decider, I am the creator,
Yeah.
then other people become, well, they become mirrors.
Mirrors. What do you mean by that?
We use them to reflect our own image back to us. We need their approval, their validation. So we don't really love them. We love how they make us feel about ourselves.
That is devastatingly accurate. And it's the whole main character energy problem online. We're all walking around thinking we're the star, which means everyone else is just a prop in our movie.
And this brings us right to the core conflict of the whole deep dive, to the agagonist.
The agagonist, I love this term. It sounds like some kind of mythical creature you have to fight. But in this text, it's not a monster, is it? It's an idea.
It's the antagonist within. It's the structural flaw in our cultural operating system.
Yeah.
And in Pitari's analysis of Wallace, the agonist is a belief we hold more sacred than almost any other.
Which is?
Free will.
Okay, stop. Time out. Here is where I have to push back. And I think a lot of people listening are going to push back too.
I'm sure they are.
Because usually free will is the hero. Free will is what makes us human. It's what separates us from rocks or, toaster ovens. It's the basis for our entire legal system, for democracy, for art. Why on earth is Pitari framing free will as the villain of the story?
This is the absolute crucial friction point of the whole analysis. And to understand it, we have to be very, very specific about what kind of free will we're talking about.
Oh.
Pitari and Wallace himself, they aren't really talking about what philosophers call compatibilist free will.
Compatibilism. Right, break that down for me.
Compatibilism is sort of the soft version. It's the idea that you're free as long as no one is physically holding a gun to your head.
So I'm free to choose what I want.
You're free to act on your desires, yes. But a compatibilist would say those desires themselves are still determined by your biology, your upbringing, your culture, everything that came before.
So I choose the vanilla ice cream, but the reason I wanted vanilla was determined by a million factors I don't control.
Exactly. And Wallace wasn't interested in that. He thought that was a cop-out. He thought that was just a fancy way of saying we're robots.
So what was he interested in? What's the other kind?
He was interested in incompatibilist free will, or, a term that's maybe more evocative, metaphysical libertarianism.
Okay, you're going to have to strip away the philosophy degree for me on that one. What are we actually saying?
We're saying the magic version.
The magic version, I like that.
The soul veto. It's the belief that you, as a human being, have a self or a soul that sits inside your brain, like a little pilot in a meg suit.
Okay.
And that pilot can veto the laws of physics, that you are an uncaused cause, that at the moment of decision, you can genuinely break the entire chain of cause and effect and choose your future, regardless of your biology, your parents, your trauma, or your environment.
It's the idea that I can just snap my fingers and be a different person. That no matter how messed up my childhood was, no matter my genetic predispositions, I can choose to be happy right now, in this moment.
Yes, that we are effectively mini-gods, creators, ex nihilo creators out of nothing.
Okay, I get that that's a huge metaphysical claim.
Yeah.
But isn't it also incredibly empowering? Wallace certainly thought so. I remember reading that he was terrified of just being a 98.6-degree calculating machine. He wanted to believe we could rise above our wiring.
He did. He found it incredibly empowering, at least initially. He thought this version of free will was the only thing that could save us from being meaningless biological zombies. But Batari argues that this belief is actually the source of the despair Wallace was trying to fight.
How does believing I have this ultimate power make me depressed? That seems completely counterintuitive.
Because if you are the decider, if you are truly magically free to choose your state of mind,
Yeah.
then you are solely and completely responsible for your own happiness.
Yeah.
Oh, think about the terrible logic of that. If you have the power right now to choose joy and you are not joyful, whose fault is it?
It's my fault.
It is entirely your fault. You failed, you chose wrong, you are defective.
It creates this feedback loop of self-judgment.
An absolutely paralyzing feedback loop of self-judgment and self-hatred. Patari points to characters like Claude Sylvanshine in The Pale King, Wallace's unfinished novel about IRS agents.
Sylvanshine, the guy with the random fact disease who's always thinking about, like, the history of carpet.
Yes, but more importantly, he's the guy who is constantly monitoring his own mental efficiency. He's trying to be a good wastoid, a good IRS agent who can focus on boring tax forms.
And he can't.
And he can't. He calls himself weak or defective in the area of will. He sits there trying to force himself to focus, and his mind wanders. And because he believes he should be able to just choose to focus, his only conclusion is that he is fundamentally broken.
It's the ultimate trap of meritocracy applied to your own brain.
That's a perfect way to put it.
We usually talk about meritocracy in terms of money. If you're poor, it's your fault for not working hard enough. But you're saying Wallace applied this logic to his own soul. If you're sad, it's your fault for not willing yourself to be happy.
Precisely. And the stakes of this belief system are incredibly high. Batari gives this state a name. He calls it ontological insecurity.
Let's break that down. That sounds like a condition that requires medication. Ontological insecurity.
Ontology is the study of being, of existence itself. So ontological insecurity is the deep, pervasive feeling that your very existence is fragile, that it's not a given.
How does that connect to free will?
Well, if you have to constantly create yourself from moment to moment through your choices, then you never just are. You are always a project. You are always a construction site. There's no solid ground of selfhood to stand on.
And construction sites are inherently unstable.
Exactly. The floor might fall out from under you at any moment, because the floor is only there if you actively think it into existence, if you choose it to be there. This is why so many of Wallace's characters are just so exhausted.
They're holding up the sky with their minds.
They really are. It sounds like anxiety weaponized into a full-blown philosophy of life.
It does, and it leads to paralysis, you said.
Total paralysis. You become like the supplicant in his stories, or the depressed person. You can't move because every choice feels arbitrary and also monumentally heavy. If I choose A, it's just because I chose it. If I choose B, it's just because I chose it. There's no external justification, no solid ground, so you just freeze.
And Pitari links this directly to the ultimate cost.
He does. He connects it to DFW's own suicide and the suicides of his characters, most famously Neil in the short story Good Old Neon.
Neil. God, that story haunts me. For listeners who haven't read it, Neil is this guy who seems to have it all. He's successful, handsome, charming.
Everyone likes him.
But inside, he feels like a total and complete fraud. He feels like he's just spent his entire life manipulating people's perceptions of him.
Neil's the perfect example of the agogonist winning. Neil believes, with absolute certainty, that he has constructed his entire personality from scratch. He is the architect.
But because he built it, he knows it's fake.
He knows it's just a performance. It's a hollow machine. And Patari argues that the logic of this kind of free will, when you followed it all the way to its absolute end, leads to the conclusion that suicide is the only rational, authentic action left.
Whoa, slow down. That is as dark as it gets. Why on earth would suicide be the rational outcome of free will? That sounds completely insane.
It sounds insane to us because we have powerful built-in survival instincts. But just follow the logic for a second. If you are the god of your own universe,
Okay.
but you are trapped in a biological machine that produces suffering, anxiety, and fraudulence,
Yeah.
and you have tried with all your might to will that suffering away, and
Yeah.
you have failed,
So I'm a god, but I can't stop the pain.
you are a powerless god, a king in a prison cell. In that terrible situation, what is the one final absolute act of power you have left? The only way to assert your ultimate freedom? The only way to prove you are truly the master of your own destiny?
Is to end the game.
It's the only card you have left to play. To prove you have control, you have to relinquish control completely. Patari traces this intellectual lineage back to Dostoevsky's character Kirillov in Demons, or the nihilistic philosophy of Giacomo Leopardi.
So believing you are in control puts you in a position where the only way to prove you have control is to destroy yourself.
That is the tragedy Patari outlines. It's a closed loop, a perfect trap.
Okay. I need to take a breath after that. That is incredibly heavy. So we've established the friction. We're all walking around feeling imperially alone. We're hyper obsessed with ourselves, and we're beating ourselves up because we think we should be able to mind over matter our way out of any and all suffering.
And we are terrified that if we stop controlling and choosing and creating for even a second, we will cease to exist.
Right. So let's move to the conceptual blueprint. Because Wallace wasn't stupid. I mean, far from it. He saw this trap. He knew he was neurotic. He knew he was self-absorbed. What was his plan? How did he try to fix this?
This is the pivot point. And honestly, it is the most tragic part of the whole story.
Okay. Wallace spent his entire literary career trying to prove that this magic free will exists because he thought it was the only way to save us from being machines. But at the same time, he desperately wanted to save us from solipsism. He wanted to affirm an ethics of compassion.
Right, this is the other side of DFW. He wanted us to care about other people. This is water again. Choose to see the annoying person in the checkout line as a suffering human being. That's the gospel of DFW, right?
It is. But Patari argues that Wallace was trying to cure poison with poison. This is what he calls the existentialist contradiction.
The existentialist contradiction. Break that down for me.
Okay, so, thesis. Wallace wants us to care about other people. He wants us to escape the prison of the self and have genuine compassion.
A noble goal.
Antithesis. Wallace affirms that we are separate, autonomous creators of meaning, all through the power of our free will.
Also sounds good on its own.
But here's the clash. You cannot have both. They are mutually exclusive. Why not? Why can't I freely choose to be a compassionate person? That seems like the most noble thing a person could possibly do.
Because if you are truly, radically free to create your own values, then all values are, by definition, arbitrary.
Explain that. That's a big jump.
Okay, if I decide that caring for you is a good and important thing, that goodness only exists because I decided it.
Okay.
It doesn't exist out there in the universe. It's not a moral law like gravity is a physical law. It's just my personal preference. It's like me saying I like chocolate ice cream over vanilla.
So it's not a moral truth. It's just my hobby. My hobby is being nice.
Exactly. If values are arbitrary creations of the individual will, there is no necessary or binding reason to care for others. The only logical outcome of absolute freedom, if you follow it, is what philosophers sometimes call might is right, or more commonly, narcissism.
If I am the source of all value, why shouldn't I prioritize myself above everyone else?
Why shouldn't you? There's no good answer in that framework. And this is the tragedy. Wallace saw the rat race of self-worship and consumerism as the problem. He saw it so clearly.
But his solution was choose what you worship.
Which just puts the self right back on the throne as the god who does the choosing.
You're saying that by telling us to choose, he's putting us right back in the driver's seat of the car that's already crashing.
That's it. It feels like he's saying, you have a broken leg. The cure is to try walking on it, but, like, harder this time.
That is a brilliant analogy, and it doesn't work.
It can't work. And Patari introduces a kind of governing law here, a deep structural reason why this keeps happening. He calls it the logos of techne.
Logos of techne. Okay, we're getting into the Greek now.
We are, but it's a really useful concept. Logos meaning logic or the underlying principle of a thing, and techne meaning art, technology, craft, or production.
So the logic of production.
Essentially, yes. If this whole philosophy were a video game engine, the core physics rule is techne. It is the deep-seated, often unconscious belief that being is available to be manipulated.
Being is available to be manipulated. That sounds like an engineering principle, not a philosophy.
It is. It's the mindset of the engineer or the manager applied to the soul, to reality itself. It treats the world, other people, and even your own mind as raw material to be shaped and controlled by your will.
Can you give me a concrete example of that? Because raw material makes me think of lumber or steel.
Think about modern dating culture. Think about the language we use on the apps.
Oh,
We say we are building a relationship. We say we are working on ourselves to be more attractive. We have a literal checklist of attributes we want in a partner.
oh, totally. I need someone who is ambitious, over 6 feet tall, likes dogs, has a good job, and fits into my 5-year plan.
Exactly. You are the architect. The other person is the clay. You are checking to see if they fit the mold you have already created in your head. That is the logos of techne. You aren't meeting a person. You are interviewing a candidate for a role in the movie of your life.
And if they don't fit the role,
You swipe left. You discard the material. Patari argues this implies that, on a deep metaphysical level, violence is the fundamental mode of interaction in this worldview.
violence. Again, that's a very strong word. You're not saying swiping left is like punching someone.
Not physical violence, no. Metaphysical violence. To decide is to kill infinite other possibilities. To act is to impose your will on the world. If I look at a forest and only see lumber, I have done a kind of violence to the being of the forest.
I've reduced it.
You've reduced it to a resource for my project. If I look at you and only see someone who can validate me, I am imposing my will on you. I am doing violence to your personhood.
I'm turning you into an object, a tool.
Correct. And within this worldview, this logos of techne, there's no such thing as grace. There's no room for a gift. There's only effort, will, production, and domination. You can never truly receive salvation. You have to achieve it.
This reminds me so much of the stuff in Infinite Jest about Alcoholics Anonymous.
It's central to it.
The addicts are told they have to surrender their will to a higher power. They have to turn it over. But Wallace and his characters, they struggled with that, didn't they?
Immensely. Because even the act of surrender became another project for the will. Patari points out that in Infinite Jest, the characters are told to surrender. But for Wallace, that surrender is still framed as a choice. The addict has to choose to surrender.
So they're still trapped in the will. It's like, I'm choosing to pretend I don't have a choice.
It's a perfect paradox. You are trying to use your will to get rid of your will. It's like trying to bite your own teeth. It's like trying to jump over your own shadow. This explains why the addicts in the book struggle so much. They are told to stop being the decider, but the only tool they believe they have is decision.
And this all leads to what you called the mechanism of despair. It's a 3-step process, almost.
It is. First, you have solipsism. Because we create our own meaning, we all live in these private, sealed-off universes. We can never truly know another person's universe.
Then step 2, others become mirrors.
Yes. This is where Patari brings in thinkers like Christopher Lasch and the culture of narcissism.
Right.
Lasch argued that the modern narcissist isn't just someone who loves themselves. It's someone who has no stable self without the constant reflection of others. We need others to validate us, which, paradoxically, makes us hate them.
Why hate them?
Because they have power over us. If I need you to tell me I'm smart or pretty or good, then I resent you for holding that card. I'm dependent on you.
And that leads to the final step,
The void.
the void.
The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre talked about this a lot. The idea of free will requires a kind of nothingness or emptiness at the very core of the self. Because if you were a solid, fixed thing, like a rock, you couldn't change, you couldn't choose. To be free, you have to be fundamentally empty, adaptable, fluid, a void.
But that emptiness, that void, it feels like meaninglessness.
It feels like a black hole.
Yeah.
We get terrified of it, so we try to fill it with our choices.
Yeah.
I'll choose this career, this partner, this identity, this brand of sneakers.
But because those choices are ultimately arbitrary, made by a self that is itself a void.
They don't fill the hole, they just slide right through.
Yeah.
So we feel empty again. And we just have to choose harder next time. Rinse and repeat.
Until despair.
Or death.
Okay, we are deep in the weeds here. This is incredible stuff, but it's a lot. Let's try to anchor this for a moment.
Good idea.
We've thrown around some big terms. Let's do our lexicon of the absurd. These are the keys Patari uses to unlock this whole argument. I want to make sure the listener can actually use these ideas, not just get crushed by them.
Let's do it.
Term number 1, we've talked about it a lot, but let's pin it down. The default setting.
Okay, the street level translation for the default setting. It's the unshakable gut feeling that You are the main character in the movie of life, and everyone else is just an extra.
It's that raw, inescapable biological selfishness you wake up with every single day.
Exactly. And the lightning strike quote for that one has to be from This Is Water.
What is it?
My deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe, the realest, most vivid and important person in existence.
The realest person. Yeah, that hits hard. Okay, term number 2, incompatibilism. Big word.
Big word, simple idea, street-level translation. This is the magic version of free will. The soul veto.
The ghost in the machine.
The belief that you aren't just a product of your genes and your environment, but that you have a soul or a pilot that can literally veto the laws of physics to make a choice.
And the quote for that one.
The lightning strike is a quote Wallace himself used, but Batari shows how he used it ironically to describe the opposing view, the one he rejected. The quote is, "A puppet is free if it loves its strings."
And Wallace couldn't accept loving the strings.
He wanted the puppet to be able to cut its own strings. That was the whole project.
Okay. Term number 3, ontological insecurity.
Street-level translation. It's the constant low-level panic that you might be a fraud.
Imposter syndrome.
It's imposter syndrome elevated to a metaphysical state. It's the fear that reality is a house of cards that you have to hold up with your mind. And if you stop thinking, you might just disappear.
Wow. And the lightning strike.
This one is from Wallace's essay on Kafka. The horrific struggle to establish a human self results in a self whose humanity is inseparable from that horrific struggle.
Oof. Your humanity is inseparable from the struggle. So if you stop struggling, you stop being human.
That's the terror at the heart of it, yes.
Okay. Term number 4, the existentialist contradiction.
Street-level translation for this one is pretty straightforward. It's
Okay.
trying to be a good moral person while believing there are no actual rules in the universe, just the ones you make up on the fly.
A quote.
Batari summarizes it perfectly. The impossibility of affirming the meaningfulness of life and an ethics of compassion while believing in free will.
You can't have both.
You can't have both.
And finally, term number 5. This one is about the books themselves, about his style. Interpret me fiction.
Yes. The street-level translation. These are books that don't just tell you a story. They force you, the reader, to do the heavy lifting of figuring out what the hell they even mean.
They're fragmented, they're difficult, they have a million footnotes.
And people always ask, why did he write like that? Was he just showing off how smart he was?
And the answer is no.
The answer is no. Batari argues it was a deliberate ethical tactic, and the lightning strike, quote, explains why. Fiction becomes a weird way to countenance yourself and to tell the truth instead of being a way to escape yourself.
So the book forces you to experience the same frustration of trying to make meaning that life does.
Exactly. You have to work to read Infinite Jest. You have to build the story inside your own head. You can't be a passive consumer.
It makes the reader complicit in the struggle. You can't just consume the book, you have to survive it.
That's a great way to put it. You have to survive it.
Okay, so we have the vocabulary, we have the conceptual blueprint. Now let's get to the really big stuff. The intellectual aftershock, the payoff.
Right.
Because Batari isn't just saying Wallace was wrong, here's a cookie. He's saying Wallace's very public, very painful failure reveals something huge about us, about the way we live right now.
He absolutely is. He's presenting us with what we're calling the hallucination.
The Sisyphus of the supermarket.
All right, let's go back to This Is Water one last time. The famous commencement speech.
The one everyone shares on YouTube.
The one everyone shares. Wallace describes the rat race. You've had a long day at work. You're in the supermarket checkout line. It's 5:00 p.m.
Ew.
The lady in front of you is screaming at her kid. The lights are this horrible fluorescent hell. And you are angry and tired, and you just want to go home.
I have been there. We all been there. It is the definition of the default setting.
It is. And then Wallace delivers the sermon. He says, you can choose to see this differently. You have a choice. You can choose to see the lady not as an obstacle, but as a suffering soul who maybe has a dying husband at home. You can choose to see the banal, ugly supermarket as sacred space, filled with meaning.
It sounds so beautiful. It sounds like the secret to happiness. What's the glitch? Where's the hallucination?
The glitch, Patari argues, is that the you who is doing the choosing is the exact same you that is angry and tired and self-centered.
It's a snake eating its own tail.
It's a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
You were trying to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps, but you were standing in quicksand. The very act of choosing to be better reinforces the idea that you are the center of the universe, the one who is in control.
So the hallucination isn't the anger or the frustration in the supermarket. The hallucination is the belief that you are the pilot of the plane.
Yes. But actually, the belief that you must pilot the plane is precisely why it's crashing. And this is why Patari argues that water is not an inspirational speech. It's a tragedy.
A tragedy. How?
It tells us correctly that everybody worships. That's true. But then it tells us we must choose what to worship. And Patari's point is that true worship, true belief, isn't a choice. It's a submission to a truth you recognize as being bigger than you. It's being seized by something.
If you choose your God.
You are really just worshiping your own power of choice. You're still the one on the throne.
That is, man, that changes the entire speech for me. It turns it from this inspirational poster into a desperate cry for help.
Please, let me choose something that works this time.
It's the addict's logic again. I will choose to surrender.
It explains the unbearable sadness that permeates all of Wallace's work. He saw the trap solipsism so clearly. He fought it with the only weapon he believed in, free will. But the weapon was the trap.
He was trying to dig his way out of a hole, but the shovel was made of the same dirt he was digging.
What a perfect metaphor. That's exactly it.
So let's hit the listener with it. The 3 viral hooks. The challenges to their own worldview that they can take away from this. If they walk away with nothing else, what should they carry into their Monday morning?
Okay, hook number 1. You think your depression is a malfunction? What if it's actually the only logical reaction to believing you are the god of your own life?
Yeah. Okay, hook number 2.
Society tells you to find yourself. This text argues that finding yourself is the start of a war against everyone else.
A war of all against all. And hook number 3.
You can't choose to believe in something bigger than you. If you choose it, you're still just worshiping your own choice.
This connects so directly to the modern epidemics of burnout and imposter syndrome, doesn't it?
It's the central diagnosis.
Yeah.
We live in a meritocracy, or at least we believe we do. We believe in merit. And if you believe in radical free will, you believe you deserve your success. I worked hard, I made good choices, I earned this.
And there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
On its own, maybe not. But the flip side is absolutely brutal, because you must also believe that you deserve your misery.
I failed. I made bad choices. My sadness is my fault.
Exactly. It explains the modern epidemic of self-flagellation. We are constantly putting ourselves on trial for the crime of not being perfectly happy and successful, and we are always the judge, jury, and the condemned.
And Patari says this leads to the final word, the parting shot, the logical conclusion of this entire worldview.
He does. And it's chilling. The ultimate logical consequences of free will are the perpetual war of all against all, the absolute absence of right and wrong, and the meaninglessness of everything.
Wow.
Or, as he puts it even more starkly in another passage, free will belongs to the essence of nihilism.
Free will leads to nihilism, not the other way around.
That's the flip. That's the core argument.
That is a lot to process. I mean, my brain is officially full. It feels like the floor has just been completely pulled out from under me.
It's incredibly dense. But it completely flips the script, doesn't it? We usually think determinism, the idea that we aren't free, is the depressing, scary option. We think it makes us into robots.
Right, the 98.6-degree calculating machines.
But Patari is suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the unbearable burden of magic free will is actually what's crushing us.
It's the difference between being a robot and being a failed god.
And maybe being a robot, or let's say a creature woven into the fabric of nature, not a ghost standing outside of it, maybe that isn't so bad after all.
Maybe there is comfort in realizing you aren't the CEO of the universe.
Maybe you can just be,
Ah.
without having to justify your own existence every second of every day.
So Wallace's failure, then, in this light, it isn't really a failure.
No, I think it's a profound, tragic success. Because he took the default setting of our entire culture, this obsession with the self and the will, and he drove it to the absolute end of the line.
She showed us where that road ends.
He crashed the car so that we could see the brakes were cut the whole time.
He stress-tested our cultural operating system to the point of catastrophic failure. He took the bullet for us, in a way. He lived the philosophy to its bitter end so we could see that it doesn't work.
Exactly. He gave us a map of a territory we should not enter.
So what's the call to action here? I mean, what do you do with this? Do we just give up? Do we just lie on the floor and say, take the wheel, biology?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
But maybe we stop trying to control everything. Maybe we question whether control is really what we want, or if it's just what we've been told to want.
So don't just accept the default setting.
Don't just accept it, and don't try to will yourself out of it, because that's the same trap. Maybe it's about recognizing that the self we're trying so hard to fix and polish and perfect might not be the point of the whole exercise.
Stop polishing the cage.
Yeah. Question the agonist. Realize that the voice in your head that's constantly saying, you need to fix this, you need to choose better, you need to be in control, maybe that voice is the problem, not the solution.
Well, my brain is officially full. Possibly slightly broken.
Yeah.
But in a good way. Like a bone that needed to be reset.
In the best possible way.
Doctorates of the absurd is dismissed.
See you in the void.